She was standing in my driveway again, arms crossed, sunglasses on, that smirk like she owned the whole county. "You can't park that here," she barked, pointing at my old green tractor like it was some kind of criminal. I wiped the sweat off my forehead. "Karen, it's harvest season. This tractor doesn't move, the crops die." She didn't care. She pulled out her phone and, without even lowering her voice, said, "Yeah, tow truck. Make it quick. It's blocking the neighborhood view." I almost laughed, except I heard the engine of the tow truck rolling in a minute later. I watched as they hooked it up like it was some junkyard scrap. The driver looked uneasy, glancing at me. "Ma'am, this is, kinda unusual," he muttered to her. She just smiled wider. "HOA rules. He's been warned." That was a lie. I'd never seen a single warning in my life. I stepped closer. "Touch that tractor and you'll regret it." Karen tilted her head. "Are you threatening me?" She pulled something from her bag, a paper with the HOA logo. "This says you can't have farm equipment here, so by law, it goes." I read the notice. Fake. Wrong font, wrong signature, and no HOA officer name. She wasn't just lying. She'd forged it. My hands tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "You sure you want to play this game?" She leaned in. "Oh, I'm not playing. You'll be out of here by the end of the month." The tow truck driver started pulling away with my tractor, and that's when I smiled for the first time that day. She had no idea the entire farmland, every acre from the road to the river, wasn't just mine. It was under a government lease in my name. And that made her little stunt a whole lot more dangerous than she thought. The dust from the tow truck hadn't even settled when Karen strutted back toward her car, heels clicking like she'd just won a prize. I stayed quiet, leaning on the fence, letting her think she had the upper hand. That's when my phone buzzed. It was Hank, from the state agricultural office. "Hey, you okay? I just got an alert about your tractor being moved. You know that's protected equipment under your lease, right?" I glanced at Karen, who was now taking pictures of my house like she was building a case. "Yeah," I said slowly, "and I'm guessing you just triggered a federal violation report." Hank didn't laugh. "This isn't small, man. They can't touch your property without authorization. That's interference with state operations." My eyes followed the tow truck in the distance. "Good. Then let them finish the job." I hung up and walked toward Karen. She was pretending to talk to someone on her Bluetooth, probably her imaginary HOA board. "You're gonna thank me one day," she said with that fake neighborly smile. "This place will look so much better without all your farm junk." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Karen, that farm junk just became your problem. And by the time the right people show up, you're gonna wish you'd stayed inside today." Her smile flickered, just for a second, but she quickly hid it. "We'll see," she said, slipping into her car. The engine roared, but she stayed parked there like she didn't want to miss what happened next. What she didn't know was the next was already in motion, and it wasn't going to be pretty. 15 minutes later, a white state truck pulled up, big seal on the door, blue lights flashing. Karen's smirk vanished the second the two officers stepped out, clipboards in hand. One of them, a tall guy with mirrored sunglasses, walked straight toward me. "Sir, we received a report your equipment was unlawfully removed. Is that correct?" I didn't even have to answer. Karen jumped in like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. "Yes, I'm the HOA representative, and this man has been violating neighborhood rules for months. I finally had his tractor towed. You're welcome." She actually said, "You're welcome." The officer didn't look impressed. "Ma'am, can I see your HOA credentials?" Karen froze, blinking like he'd just spoken another language. Well, I don't carry them around, but I'm the president of—" The second officer cut her off. "Ma'am, we've already checked." This area has no registered HOA. Karen's face went pale, but she tried to recover. Well, it's an informal HOA. We handle things ourselves. The tall officer turned to me. Mr. Carter, as you know, this land is under a state agricultural lease. Any interference with your equipment is considered obstruction of state farming operations. He glanced at Karen. That's a felony in this county. Karen laughed, but it was shaky. Oh, come on. You can't be serious. The officer didn't smile. Ma'am, the tow truck company is already en route back here. With your name on the release paperwork, I suggest you wait. I leaned against the fence again, watching her grip her steering wheel so hard her knuckles went white. The game had flipped, and she knew it. We didn't have to wait long. The tow truck rolled back in, my tractor still chained up on the bed. The driver looked more nervous than before, avoiding my eyes as he eased it into the driveway. One of the officers waved him to stop. "Leave it there," he ordered, then handed me a clipboard. "Sir, sign here to confirm return of state-leased equipment." Karen got out of her car, her voice sharp now. "You can't just undo what I—" The second officer held up a hand. "Ma'am, you're not authorized to move, tow, or modify any property on this land. And since you initiated the tow, the fees are your responsibility." That made her blink. Fees? What fees? The tall officer's tone was flat. $200 towing and impound plus $500 for obstruction of state operations. Payable today, or it goes on record as unpaid damages. Karen's mouth opened, but nothing came out. She turned to me like I might save her. I didn't. I just said, "Guess those informal HOA rules don't cover tractor repossession." The tow driver, clearly enjoying himself now, added, "Oh, and ma'am, they said to tell you they'll be contacting you about possible charges for forged documents." Her head snapped toward me. "You told them?" I smiled. "Didn't have to. You handed them the paper yourself." Karen stood there, jaw tight, while the officers finished their paperwork. She was realizing this wasn't just an embarrassing afternoon. This was about to be on her permanent record. And we weren't even at the worst part yet. Karen's voice cracked as she tried to spin the story. "This is all a misunderstanding. I was just trying to keep the neighborhood looking decent." The tall officer didn't flinch. "Ma'am, forging state or municipal notices is a criminal offense. You could be facing charges for impersonating an official entity." I could see the panic building in her eyes, but she wasn't ready to back down. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. I'll have my lawyer handle this." The second officer raised an eyebrow. "Good. We'll need their info. And while you're at it, make sure they know the state has full video footage from the security cameras installed on this property." Karen's head jerked toward me. "You have cameras?" I didn't bother hiding my grin. "Multiple angles, audio too. Everything you said, everything you did, already uploaded to the state server." She turned back to the officers, trying to laugh it off. "Well, that's not really proof." The tall officer cut her off. "Ma'am, the footage shows you placing a fake notice on his door, calling the tow and instructing the driver to hide it out of sight. That's intent." Karen's fake confidence cracked wide open. "Wait, you're not really going to arrest me, are you?" The officer's tone was calm, almost casual. "We're going to escort you to your home, collect any other forged notices, and then determine next steps. But yes, it's looking that way." She opened her mouth to argue again, then closed it when she noticed the small crowd gathering. Across the street, phones out, recording every second. For the first time all day, she didn't have anything to say. And I knew. The real show was just beginning. Karen tried to keep her chin up as the officers walked her toward her car, but the murmurs from the neighbors were cutting deeper than any handcuffs could. "That's the HOA lady, right?" someone whispered. "She's always been trouble," another replied. Did you hear she forged documents? Karen shot them all dirty looks, but it only made people pull out their phones faster. The second officer opened her car door. We'll follow you home. Don't deviate. Karen muttered something under her breath, then glanced back at me. This isn't over. I crossed my arms. Oh, it's over. You just don't know it yet. We all drove down the street in a slow, uncomfortable parade. Karen in front, officers right behind her, me bringing up the rear in my pickup. The moment we reached her driveway, the officers got out and went straight to her porch. I watched. From the truck as they pulled an entire stack of fake HOA notices from a box by her door, some already with names and addresses filled in. The tall officer flipped through them, shaking his head. Multiple counts. This isn't just targeting one neighbor. This is a pattern. Karen's voice was almost a whisper now. I was just trying to keep order. People don't follow rules anymore. The second officer looked up. Ma'am, you don't get to make the rules. Not here, not anywhere. They read her rights right there in her driveway, neighbors peeking from behind curtains, a couple openly recording. Karen's hands trembled as they cuffed her. As they led her toward the squad car, she looked at me one last time. No smirk. No glare, just the face of someone who realized she'd picked the wrong person to mess with. And I knew. My final card still hadn't been played.